I am so ready to talk about makeup design once again. For anyone who is not familiar, is my ongoing series called Makeup Design Roasts and Toasts. But Makeup Design Roasts and Toasts is really an opportunity for me to speak to you specifically about beauty and makeup design. Not necessarily the products themselves and how they perform, but really exclusively about the design, the packaging design, the branding, the way that it is effective in its communication of the brand to the person that's buying it. It's just an opportunity for us to delve a little bit deeper into that. And for all of my fellow design nerds, or even if you're not a design nerd, sometimes it's fun to kind of nitpick about design and beauty products. I think it's important, and I don't know that a lot of people really end up focusing on this, especially on beauty YouTube. It doesn't end up being as important or as much of a focus for a lot of people, which I totally understand. You are usually there to make sure that you're purchasing makeup that works for you, is effective and safe. So not a lot of discussion does end up going into the design, but as a designer and art director, I find it incredibly important. It definitely plays a large role in my beauty purchases. I like to look at beautiful things when I'm getting ready. I like to have really nice things in front of me. So if something doesn't end up meeting that standard, a lot of times I will end up decluttering it. On occasion, I've kept some less than stellar products in my collection simply because I love them too much. But a lot of the time, if it's really bad design, it has to go or it doesn't get brought in at all. In the past, when I've done this series, I've just pulled random brands out of essentially a random number generator to decide which ones I'm going to speak about. But this episode is going to feature the brands that you wanted to hear me talk about. I did a little poll and found out some of the names that came up repeatedly that you were interested in me discussing. So that is going to be the brands that we talk about today. Let's get right into it, and we're going to start with brand number one. Okay, brand number one is Rhode, created by Hailey Rhode Bieber. I have said this before, especially when I've spoken about Rhode products, some of which I have in my collection. I am not a particular devotee of Hailey Bieber, or certainly not of Justin Bieber, but when she did launch her brand Rhode, I have to say, I found myself interested. It had this highly curated way about it. It had this very distinct sort of take on packaging in a way that I hadn't seen in a while. It felt like what Glossier did when Glossier originally launched, where it was creating not just a brand and not just a bunch of products, but really a whole persona. Rhode isn't just a brand. It's almost like if Rhode was a person, this is what that person looks like. And this is what they carry in their bag. And this is what they have on their bathroom sink. And this is what they have on their vanity. That is the vibe that I got when she launched Rhode. Lots of times brands will launch and you won't get a distinct personality from them right away, but Rhode had it. Obviously, it's inclusive of a lot of energy and the look and feel that Hailey herself puts out. You know, it was like that it girl persona, that girl who's effortlessly cool, effortlessly beautiful, has, only a few things and they're the right things, and that's kind of the vibe that I got. She launched almost exclusively with skincare, which is another unusual thing. I think a lot of the celebrity brands that are starting right now really go straight into color cosmetics. So the fact that she started with skincare really did also kind of make me curious. And she created essentially this lineup, which has slowly expanded. I know there's like a pineapple cleanser. There's a milky toner that I am actually really interested in trying. I have a milky toner or a milky moisturizer that I love from Ilia, but it is far too expensive for a tiny amount of it. So I'm curious about the Rhode one. They just launched the Barrier Butter, which is this really intensive moisturizer. Also kind of reminds me of the Glossier Balm After Balm or whatever it's called, like a really thick moisturizer. They kind of have a full skincare lineup if you want to wash your face, if you want to, moisturize your face, if you want to tone your face, whatever it is you want to do with your face, Rhode has a lineup that's got you covered. It's a pretty robust one at this point. I imagine next she'll come out with some sort of eye cream, something like that. For lip care specifically, she launched the lip peptide tints. I think initially they were all this kind of style, which I have this one from the brand. I can never read it. This is going to be something I talk about. This is in the Rhode Vanilla. Yeah, so this is like their classic Rhode Vanilla skincare one. And then after they launched those initial no color versions of the peptide lip tints, they came out with colored versions of that. And there's a whole collection of these now. This is the shade Espresso, which is their dark brown. These are very lightly tinted. And then very recently, I think it was over the summer, they launched, and I have a whole video on these little guys. These are the Pocket Blushes. I go deep into my weird obsession with these and my confusion over that obsession in another video, so I'm definitely not going to get into this one. But I do have these on my vanity just so that we can reference them as far as packaging goes and sort of pros and cons. Rhode has an aesthetic. It is minimalism, but modern minimalism. So the shapes of their bottles, the colors that they're choosing, that sort of space gray, green gray shape choices, like when it comes to the, you know, these little pocket blush chodes. I always like to call them the chodes. The way that the lip peptides are designed, they have that like flat side of the cap. These fit into the lip cases that they came out with, which are phone cases, which these fit into. It's poised to go viral. That is the vibe. It's like, hey, we know what you're looking for. You may not know what you're looking for, but we as a brand, we know what you're looking for. You're looking for the best in each category. You only need one or maybe two if it's a color cosmetic, and you don't want to pay all that much for it. That's great. We can give it to you exclusively on our website because they're not sold right now anywhere else besides rhodeskin.com. They have that you're gonna want it vibe. It's really hard to explain. It's hard to point fingers exactly at what it is, but it's very much about, we have a POV. It's a strong POV. We know what we're doing. You're gonna want it. It's cool. Trust us. That's the vibe. That really does remind me of what it felt like when Glossier launched, which was like, we know top shelf. We know what you're looking for. We also know you don't want to spend a ton of money. You don't need to go luxury. We've got you covered in this cool girl world. I have to say, I get it. I am attracted to it. My personal preferences about design are piqued by the brand. That does not mean that I think that everything that they do is ideal, but there's enough of a style choice. There's enough design decisions. There are things inspired by architecture. There's really, really great product photography, beautiful close-ups, gorgeous portraiture shots. They have a really strong art direction team. That's a huge priority for the brand. Based on everything that I've seen them do, based on every campaign that I've seen them launch, like the fact that it is marketed really well is super important to them. And they also clearly have the money to do that. They have a whole army of people working for them. They have a celebrity brand face attached to them. So they really have to deliver. They have a mandate, like you have to perform. So everything has to be on point. For the most part, I think it is. Here's my qualms with it. There are a few things that I think are just dumb to be dumb, if you know what I mean. Like they purposely made them dumb to be dumb. I don't always vibe with that. Insanely light pink font type on this like light gray package. I mean, even if I hold this up, let's see, even if I hold this up to the camera really close like this, you still can't see jack. I can't see it even if I'm holding it up close to my eyes. It has nothing to do with my eyes being good or bad. It's just impossible to read. This is dumb to be dumb. They did it dumbly on purpose. I absolutely know that they did because they think it's cool. You may think it's cool too, or you may think it's dumb and not want to purchase it. I think it's dumb to be dumb, dumb on purpose. Up to you whether or not you think it's cool or not. Is the product nice? Yeah, the product's nice. Do I think it would be a little bit better had they had a little more contrast in this design? Yes, I absolutely do. Think it's dumb to be dumb. These I've talked about, like I said in my other video, are a very strange design. There's a lot of wasted space here. Are there reasons why they made it this way? Obviously, they're definitely written about on their website. And if you really want to delve deep into like why they made it this way, you can. Is it a dumb design? That is really also up for interpretation. I think in some ways it's actually very smart. I think it is memorable. I think it is interesting. And I think it has a little bit of that it factor, that cool girl aesthetic, but it also looks like a skin tone tiny chode, and it's a waste of space, and storing them is a pain in the butt. And it also, these have, like I spoke about, have no weight to them. They feel really lightweight, really plasticky, and just like not super enjoyable to hold, whereas some of their other products have a little more weight. They feel a little more luxury. These do not. I can see them trying things. I can see them, I think, making some mistakes probably in earnest, and then I can see them making some mistakes on purpose. I think the core design of the skincare seems to be nice. I don't own any of it in person, so I can't tell you how it feels to touch or exactly what it looks like other than the product photography, but it looks pretty nice and uniform. And basically what I'm trying to say is the brand knows who they are. I always have a lot of respect for that. I talk about it a lot. I like that a brand knows who they are, and I like when they crystallize that in their brain before they launch. And this brand did exactly that. So I have to give them props for that. I would say I toast them more than I roast them, and I am looking forward to seeing what they come out with next. I am curious about their design decisions. I just want to see what they're going to do. That doesn't mean I'm going to love everything or that I support everything or that I like high five them for every choice, but I'm curious enough about it, and I like that they pull inspiration from all of these really artistic places. I can appreciate that. So for the moment, in spite of it all, we're going to toast Rhode. Next up, we have Mob Beauty. This is another brand that I have been talking about a whole lot recently because I have brought a lot of them into my collection, and I really, really enjoy the products. One of the most interesting things about Mob that you'll probably notice not a lot of people talk about is the fact that their entire design ecosystem is basically designed to be as earth-friendly, as compostable, as fully recyclable as possible. All of their product packaging, when it comes in its original packaging, like the lipsticks, the eyeshadows, come in these cardboard paper tubes and components. Everything here can be, except for the, the metal pan that the product itself comes in, or whoops, let's not drop everything on top of me, can be removed. So you can take the pan out of its original packaging, you can put it in a Z palette or one of their magnetic palettes that they have. The lipstick tubes, so the inner portion, these can go into a permanent lipstick tube that they sell, or you can just keep it like I do in their cardboard tubes, which actually hold up pretty well, I would say. And everything has these extremely minimalist colors, black and white. So you have black packaging, white type. This is their Mob logo. Everything is the same. All of the names for things, for the most part, are numbers. It's like a numbered system. That doesn't mean they don't have names that kind of accompany them. Like on this actual palette, this is the Southern Goth palette that they came out with. There's a sticker on here that says Southern Goth palette, but everything inside has like M157, M158. Everything is numbered and extremely basic. It ends up giving it a very uniform, very factory kind of feel, which is interesting. I feel like for some people, this would be a huge turnoff. I want my packaging to feel nice and like it's not going anywhere. Luxury even. I hate the idea of cardboard packaging. I don't care about the environment. I don't give a shit if I have to, recycle it or whatever. Like, there are definitely going to be people that look at this and are extremely turned off. I am the opposite. The fact that they have created what actually feels like really nice, pretty thick and very user-friendly packaging across the board that also happens to be extremely awesome to recycle fully is great. To me, this is ideal. And it's also sort of designed, I think, a lot with makeup artists in mind. Like, most of their things can be converted into custom palettes and Z palettes. I have a little custom eyeshadow palette here that I made. This is just a little black palette. This is, I'm assuming, plastic, probably recycled plastic, and you can fit eyeshadow pans in here. They have bigger sizes where you can fit their blushes and their cream, foundations and all that stuff. I love this system. I don't love the numbered system. I think that the packaging is really cool, and I like the idea of keeping things as simple and minimal minimal and recyclable as possible so that you have unlimited possibilities as to what you can do with their products as an artist. But the numbers, as someone who loves color and loves color names and loves coming up with color names and like, you know, giving things personality, this does feel very generic. It's all kind of in keeping with their ecosystem. Like, I understand why they do it this way, and it does kind of give you that labby feel. And a lot of what they do feels like it's lab forward, you know, from having their chemist Vic out in front as essentially a face of the brand to, you know, working with everyday makeup artists in their pop-up labs around the country. Like, they are lab forward. And so this numbered chemist kind of system feels like it's in keeping with that. So it's on brand for them. You just may personally not love it the way that I don't love it, because to me it takes some of the personality out of things. Like, I'd love to know the person who designed this purple, what do they want to call it? Because I know they didn't want to call it M83. They just had to call it M83 in order to get it out there, but like, what's really, you know, going on? They do on their website have accompanying color descriptions for things, which is helpful when you're shopping online. But again, when you get things in person, it's all this lab numbered system, which I have mixed feelings about. In general, I think, again, this is another example of a brand that has an extremely solid POV on who they are, what they want to be, what their priorities are, what they're, you know, making sure that the consumer knows they prioritize. Like, from the get-go, they're like, we are about making amazing custom colors with amazing artists, and we are all about making the best, cleanest possible products ever. Vegan beauty is super important to us, and we want everything to be as green as possible. Like, that is who they are. And so they are delivering that message to you as a consumer extremely well, I think, through to their packaging design. It's all there. And if you want to take their products and put them into something a little more permanent, they also give you options to do that. Or you can do it yourself in your own way. I like that. I think it's great. Like I said, my only kind of qualm is with the numbered system, which I think still works for them as a brand. But other than that, I really can't complain. I like it. I think that they have very much perfected the idea of making green, compostable, recyclable packaging still sexy and still user-friendly. They've put their own spin on it. I like their little squishy logo. I like their little squat logo. It's so cute, and I always enjoy it when I see it. I think it's great. Mob, again, I'm gonna toast you. I love you. I can't help it. I think you're doing a good job. The next brand is Oden's Eye. Oden's Eye has been in my collection now for a while, but I recently decluttered quite a few things that I had from Oden's Eye that I'd been holding on to. So at the moment, the only thing that I have is this Jewels and Gems palette, which is a really good example of their sort of classic packaging. So let me just give you a look at this. This is a very typical palette from Oden's Eye. They have different sizes and, you know, different looks and feels, but like, this is a classic palette from them. And I would say that the sort of artwork on it as well is also very indicative of like the kinds of artwork that you might see from the brand. They work with, I'm assuming, different illustrators to kind of get these female portraits, and, you know, they do a lot of like bright colors on their packaging, etc. They are known for having this offset kind of pan design. I've heard them referred to at times as bastard pans because they're not typical sizes. So they have these weird little pans. I've never tried to depan one of these palettes to see how difficult it is to remove them, but I imagine, like most palettes, if you really wanted to take this apart and get them out, you could. But then keeping them in a Z palette will be annoying because they are this actually strange shape and size. But for some people, they find it really attractive. They're like, oh, I think it's cool that they have this custom shape that they make that's very much branded kind of Oden's Eye, even though I've seen other brands do it too. And they think that that's part of the aesthetic and they really like it. I personally think that the aesthetic of Oden's Eye is not, it's not as low as some other brands that I've seen, but I would not put it up all that high. They definitely have a sense of their brand, their collabs with Angelica Nyquist. They've done some sort of goddess-inspired things, like she did, I think it was like a Norse god, inspired palette. She did the Hela palette. A lot of female imagery. They work with a lot of female makeup artists to create custom palettes, and often those will be adorned in female illustrations and designs and things like that. And so it feels very like women power, forward centric kind of branding. But there's a lot of kind of icky stuff about the branding. I also don't love the fonts that they use often. They're really hard to read. They're very sort of weird and, just kind of like icky font choices. Like I think they could do better with their branding in that sense. I don't even really like their logo design either, personally. I think it's kind of meh. It's not awful, but it's not memorable enough, and it's not great in many ways. It does get into that slightly childish kind of vibe, and I'm not saying that's bad. I love playful makeup, but I'm not going out of my way at this point in my life, at least personally, to buy like Lisa Frank-esque makeup. And more, I feel like that's the kind of thing that I see from them. Not only that, but there was a collection that they launched, I think it was a year or two ago, that I remember also had jewelry with it. And it was clear from the design of the jewelry that there's like a taste level that is kind of missing for me from them. Like very costumey, very over the top. A lot of people might love it, and I'm sure that it sold well, or I hope it sold well for them. But for me, what I got from that was, I don't know if this brand is for me. They might have some nice eyeshadows, and they might do some really nice color stories now and again. But overall, I don't know if I'm their real audience, because it does feel another version of almost ColourPop typey makeup, like we're gonna come out with like a lot of different really colorful palettes, and sometimes the designs are gonna be cheesy and sometimes they're gonna feel more elegant. Like there's a huge disparity between even their Christmas palettes. Like they've come out with these holiday palettes each year, and over the years, I remember their first launch, I was like, oh, those are beautiful. They look classy, vintage Christmas almost. And then over the years, I'm like, they get cheesier and cheesier. Like they've added, gingerbread men and all this stuff. Like things have just felt like they're going in this more childlike direction, and it's not for me. I do think in general, the artwork isn't terrible, and I think that they clearly do put thought into their design, but I also think they rely a little heavily on things that they've just kind of been doing for a long time without maybe looking at them again. Like I said, like their font choices or even their pan sizes. Like, they've probably invested a lot in these like custom pans, but do they really need them? Or is that all that's kind of keeping them from standing out from other brands? If these weren't in that style pan, would you remember it as much? Would it be as in the forefront of your mind as Oden's Eye? I mean, in some ways it's smart because it does help them stand out, but how much are they sort of relying on that and falling back on that to keep them top of mind for people? I think I'm kind of trosting them. I'm in the middle because they're not a total roast, but I would not go out of my way to toast them because there's enough that they're doing that feels a little bit like meh to me, but they are also putting in energy to things that I think is important. And they do have a more or less like strong brand kind of sense of self, which like I said, I appreciate that. I just don't love it. I think that there's a lot of things they could reevaluate and do better and be stronger with, not to mention just even how they're approaching who they're reaching out to in the beauty community to like collaborate with. I would love to see them get some more diversity in their, universe. It feels as though they work with a lot of the same people repeatedly, and I just love to see them expand who they're working with and whose POV they're bringing into their world. So we'll call it a trost for now. The next brand is Auric Cosmetics. This is the brand that was founded by Samantha Ravindal. For anyone who doesn't know, Samantha Ravindal is a huge beauty YouTuber, and you've probably heard of her or seen her before, but she did found a brand a few years ago. I feel like they come out with something new like every couple years. I mean, they've been very slowly building out their brand. They launched with the Auric lip balms. Forgive me, I don't really remember the names of everything, but they have the potted lip balms. They also have a tube version. They have these eye duos, and they have the Glow Lust, which I think is probably that, and the lip balms I think are their highest, most talked about products. And they just had a new launch for the first time in quite a while, where they launched a cream cheek palette, so with like kind of a bronzer, blusher, something called Dew Beam, and another thing. And it's like 4 pans, and you can totally take it apart, and Sam showed it online, and I'm waiting to hear what people think of them because I'm very curious to see how the response is to them. They're a small brand and extremely curated. They really ride on Sam's persona and the fact that she's a big enough person that she can pull a lot of people in. They use that obviously to sort of launch, to get people in the door. And then how they've maintained it, I guess, is that people seem to really like the products. Now, the only thing that I've ever tried from them is one of the eye duos, and I don't have it anymore because I really didn't like it. I liked the topper shade that was in it. It had this really pretty, I think it was in the shade Ego, and the topper shade was this very pretty sparkly, but not like hyper sparkly shimmer shade, and it was in a very pretty color. That I was fine with. It was okay. But the cream eyeshadow was, in my personal opinion, horrible. I've never had such difficulty applying a cream eyeshadow to my lids than I did with that one. It was incredibly patchy. I just could never get it to work for me, so I decluttered it. I was like, I can't work with this anymore, and it's not worth it to me to just keep it for the topper shadow. So I did get rid of that. I haven't tried the lip balms. I've been really curious about them for a very long time. I think they're called like Lip Plush or something. And so at some point I might bite the bullet and try it. Same with the Glow Lust. It's kind of been on my radar for a while. I've seen how people use it and love it. They have this really luxe sort of objective, I think. Like they want to be this high-end luxury brand, and all the components are really weighted and heavy and sort of designed with this like golden sort of, marble inspired like onyx and beautiful stones and, all the things that I'm sure Sam loves and appreciates. And as a person who's been in the beauty community for so long, you have to assume she spends a lot of time hyperfixating on how every little thing works because if it's her brand, it has to be perfect. So when you buy something from them, you're sort of getting this idea that it's like the gold standard because Sam has put her stamp on it. The one thing I tried, I found incredibly disappointing. That doesn't mean all the stuff's disappointing. I do remember feeling like the component was extremely heavy and weighted, which did feel nice to hold and was pretty cool. I liked that it even had a little mirror in it, which was kind of nice to have. And the way that she showed off the new packaging design, which is almost as big as a clutch. I mean, it's this huge like palette. It was clearly inspired by like really sleek looking clutch bags and stuff like that. So there's thought that's going behind these things. There's immense thought that's going behind these things, but they are incredibly expensive. Just as a US consumer, I find their pricing like pretty intense. It's not quite as intense as like looking at Chanel and finding out that they have like $180 lipstick on their website or something like that. I mean, it's not quite up there, but it is high end. And I am not saying that they don't necessarily deliver on that promise of a high-end product, but I do feel like it's probably the kind of brand that would benefit from their price structure being a little bit lower and their products being a little bit more accessible to get more people to try them instead of going in super hot on we are a luxury, high-end, celebrity, YouTuber driven brand. Do you know what I mean? I get the vision and I can understand because I watch Sam's videos exactly what she's trying to do and go for. And I think it's cool and I think it is elegant and pretty, but I think some of their products are more expensive than Victoria Beckham. And I think if anyone's earned the sort of like, I'm gonna be luxe and I'm gonna be bougie vibe, it's like Victoria Beckham has probably earned that a little bit more than Samantha Ravindal. Now you may not agree with me on this. You might be a complete devotee of the lip plushes and be like, I will pay whatever Sam wants me to pay. This is the best damn lip balm I've ever tried. This is the best highlighter I've ever tried. ride. Like, I will do whatever it takes to get these products. I think I do suffer a little bit from the fact that I don't have some of these things in my hand. I objectively think a lot of their items look pretty, but I am not somebody who has seen the brand launch, seen everything they've come out with, and just been like, oh my God, Sam, what is she gonna come out with next? I can't wait. It looks so exciting. To me, it's actually a little cooler what Hailey has done, which she's made a very accessible brand, and she still has a really strong style POV. And yeah, you're losing some of the luxury element, but you're making it more affordable for more people. And Sam's brand is just, it's pretty up there. And like, it's okay as long as she's fine with that. But I feel like it would be nice to see them try to expand to a wider audience by maybe doing a little less and giving a little more. That's kind of how I feel. I think some of it's beautiful. I think some of it looks very elegant. And I'm sure some of you will come into the comments and tell me how great it feels. But I think it's, not trying to cheat here, but I think it's another Trost. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. There's some nice design elements, beautiful logo. I mean, you know, very, very nicely branded, but I just feel like meh about it. It doesn't totally excite me. I think if anything has excited me, it's that little lip balm with that little stupid jade spatula in it, which I know I'll lose immediately, but there's something really nice and luxe about that. It gives you the promise of luxury. So we're gonna Trost Auric. Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna have to pull Tarte up on my phone because I honestly have no idea what the heck this brand does anymore. Let's find out what Tarte's doing. Tarte, what are you doing? Okay, so I was like, oh, I wonder how Tarte has changed since I last looked at Tarte, because I haven't looked at Tarte probably in at least 12, 15 years, something like that. It's been a long time since I checked out Tarte. Tarte is one of those brands at Sephora that I remember seeing when Sephora's first opened and being like, ooh, Tarte. And I remember, of course, hearing about the infamous Shape Tape, which Tarte came out with. This is like one of those original, like really strong concealers that everybody loved. And, you know, they had really kind of basic prestige level makeup. Here to report, nothing has changed. I literally pulled up their website. One of the first things I see is Shape Tape Full Coverage Concealer and the Tartelette Tease Amazonian Clay Eyeshadow Palette. These are the same things that they had at least 15 years ago. I mean, nothing has changed. They may have updated their logo to be simpler, or everything is accented with purple. It's like purple and gold. There's a lot of this sort of weird, sort of kind of mermaid adjacent feeling to it. Like there's these kind of pastel gradients that they use. Like I said, a lot of purple, but overall, I mean, nothing in this brand has changed since like the last time that I saw them. I do remember they came out with those Maracuja lip oils, the like lip oil but in a clicky stick. I don't know if they were the first brand to do that, but I know that they were for a while kind of like the standard of that type of product, and people are like, well, this brand came out with this one, but it's not as good as the Tarte one or whatever. Listen, Tarte is gonna do Tarte. I think if I can tell you anything based on looking at their website now, it's that if Tarte hasn't changed in 15 years, they ain't gonna change. Like, this is who they are, this is what they're doing, this is what they're offering, and they're either gonna go away or they're gonna continue to just like do the same thing. I cannot imagine that Tarte is suddenly gonna come out with like some huge rebrand and try and regain market share. They're probably just safely existing in their bubble of people that like are addicted to Shape Tape and the Amazonian Clay line, and they're sticking to what they know. They have a very beigey kind of feel to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing exciting about what Tarte is doing. They're not going to innovate. They're not going to show you something new. Maybe they might come out with a cool product. Like at some point they came out with those Maracuja lip oils and people did kind of go nuts over them. But now other brands have taken that and done it better or perfected it more or made it in more interesting packaging. And so Tarte is just kind of left here being like, hey, we're still here at Sephora. You can still find our dusty eyeshadow palettes right over here. Check it out. Like, they're not trying too hard. I mean, I think that's the vibe I'm getting, is like, they're not trying too hard. They're just floating, existing, being what they've been for a generation. They remind me of the Sephora version of Almay. You know, like, Almay has existed forever. They are what they are. They're just, I mean, they at one point had a rebrand too, but they still are what they are. They are just a slightly older, but not too old, but, you know, basic kind of woman's drugstore makeup. And I feel like Tarte is like a basic woman's kind of Sephora makeup. Like I am not interested in it at all. I find it extremely boring, like literally yawn-worthy makeup. Nothing about the packaging design pulls me in. Nothing about the branding pulls me in. Nothing really tells me who they are, except that the fact that they've had a few products that they've made their name on for so long. They feel very old-fashioned at this point. They feel very outdated at this point. To me, it doesn't matter that some of their products might work extremely well and might be really great and might be standouts in someone's collection. They are clearly not trying all that hard. And to me, that already says, like, I just don't care. And why would I care if they don't care? I mean, I think a good example is, like, I'm not such a lover of Huda Beauty. I don't have any Huda Beauty at this point. Well, I think I have one thing, but, like, I'm not, like, a Huda Beauty person. But it's clear to me that Huda Beauty is, like, trying to do different things. They're in the process of rebranding. Like, they're attempting to do some stuff. You may not like it. I don't love it. But, like, they're attempting to do some stuff. When is the last time someone said to you, have you seen what Tarte did? Have you looked at Tarte recently? Have you checked out Tarte? Tarte did something kind of cool. No one's saying that. There's a reason. Nobody cares. It's sleepy, beigey, middle of the road Sephora makeup. Shut the door. We're done here. It's a roast. Like, it's cooked, okay? All right, we are ending on an indie brand, and it is one that I know has been around for a while and that a lot of indie collectors have in their collection, and it is Devinah, or Devinah Cosmetics. I personally have never purchased from Devinah. I have never tried the brand, and so I cannot bring out anything in my collection, but, you know, I know a lot of people have bought singles from them over the years. They're one of those brands that's come out with, like, a few palettes more recently, like small palettes, but they mostly do singles. Devinah recently entered my brain space because they are one of the indie brands that has been using AI art in some of their packaging. I know that recently they came out with, or maybe not recently anymore, they came out with some palette that had like unicorn on it. Like, you can look at sort of the like legs of the, and like where the hair is on the on the unicorn, and you can see where the AI generator like fucked up and didn't quite complete its picture. And so there's some weird things going on there. And then even more recently, they came out with some witchy palette where it was again using AI generated art. And I believe the founder, Devinah, came out and said, yes, it is AI art, and I worked with an AI artist to create my vision or something like that. Something along those lines. I don't want to misquote anybody, but I know that they were responding to people in the comment section when they were asking if it was AI generated art, basically being like, yeah, it is, and this is how I did it, and, you know, great. I will refer you to another episode of Roast and Toast in which I talk a little bit more about AI generated art, and I, at that point, was speaking about Ensley Rain. Nothing's changed. I don't believe that it is a very good way to go for any brand at this point. I don't believe you should be using it for final art. And I do think that a lot more people need to educate themselves on it before making, you know, defenses of a brand, before accusing a brand, before getting all riled up about it. Just do your research. Just look into it like a teeny tiny bit and you will find a wealth of information. It is still a actively being figured out field, so I certainly do not have all the answers. But I can tell you, as someone who works in the arts, that somebody going out and spending money to pay someone to AI generate this ugly picture of 3 or 4 witches that literally will give me nightmares to put on their palette as final art is not cool. I'm sorry. It's just not cool. The fact that the founder even spent money on it to get it is like embarrassing. You know, it's just not cool. It's something where people really need to educate themselves and they just aren't doing it and they just don't care enough. And listen, I get it. There's a lot of really horrible things going on right now that maybe it's not your priority to do that for yourself, to spend a lot of time, but even 5 minutes will tell you a lot more. So I personally am really offended by this kind of work. I'm offended by the fact that this is the way that the brand chose to go. And beyond that, even prior to it, I think there's just like a taste level here and that is missing. And it's the reason that I personally have never purchased from the brand. It's one of those reasons why like this particular indie brand did not pull me in, because the whole design of the website, the design of the logo, like everything about the sort of like brand vibe doesn't mesh with me. It's not my personal style. And that's not to say that everything is inherently bad, but there is a vibe, vaguely witchy kind of stuff going on here. And there are some brands that I think are doing that really well. Like I think Rituel de Fille is a really good example of a brand that's kind of doing something similar, but in a really beautiful and elegant way, and has put a lot of time and a lot of thought into their logo design, their packaging design, like everything that they do is really considered, and I am attracted to that brand. But the way that Devinah is doing it does not pull me in, because it feels very basic. It feels very middle of the road. It feels very bottom of the barrel. It just doesn't stand out to me, and it certainly doesn't pull me in. Now, unfortunately, the only memorable thing for me about the brand is the fact that they are amongst those indie brands that are using AI generated art for their packaging design. I'm like, that's just a hard no for me. I am going to roast them. I have said it before and I will say it again. I am not here for any brand to fail. I am not rooting for any brand to fall apart and fail. I want brands, especially indie brands that are, founded by amazing people, I'm sure, to succeed. But if you want to succeed, then I feel like you need to start listening to some of the feedback, and you need to start taking into consideration what you're doing. And so if Devinah down the line decides to maybe, veer in another direction, think about a rebrand, consider what they're doing as far as, their usage of AI art, maybe I would take another look at them. But for now, it's a hard pass for me, and it's a hard roast. Okay. I feel like I needed to breathe more through that whole thing. I sped through it. Okay, that was a great group of brands. I really want to thank everyone who responded to my poll and suggested what brands they would like to see me talk about. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a good variety. We got to talk about a lot of different types of design and some highs, some lows, some middle of the ground. It was a really, really good group. So I have you to thank for that, and thank you again so much. I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please, as always, give it a like before you leave it and consider subscribing. I would love to have you on this channel. I try to do more of this kind of video than I do probably any other kind of content. I like to be critical of makeup in a really thought-provoking way, hopefully, and when it comes to design, it's just like a passion of mine. So I hope it's helpful for you to hear my POV, and whether or not you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you are all about a brand that I kind of semi-trashed, let me know. I want to know. With that, I do want to say thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I love you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever you are doing, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Bye.